Hello, people of the internet, and welcome to the third episode of the Conquered Party podcast with your host, Mr. X Factor. Um, I hope you all are having a pretty decent day at the very least. Um, I drank one too many fruit smoothies last night, and the phenomenal amount of starch that is in my body right now is causing me to basically shit out my intestines. Um, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good. Um, I wanted to spend this episode, or so, um, this podcast almost didn't happen. Um, because I'm still getting used to the whole the weird. I'm settling in to the schedule for this podcast because what I had before was really silly and overcomplicated. Um, because what I wanted to do was originally what I wanted to do was a weekly thing, which just took up too much time. So I was like, hey, I'll hit some Sundays, whatever the fuck that meant. And so I took a break and almost forgot to make one for this Sunday. Um, so I'm just gonna have it be a bi-weekly deal now, unless stated otherwise. Um, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. Before we headed on into the actual meat of this vocal sandwich. And today I wanted to this is a solo cast again due to scheduling reasons. I couldn't get anybody else on. Next time I plan on bringing on a new guest, so be ready for that. Uh, I gotta work out some things in my work schedule so that I actually have a designated time to work on these videos. Uh, and I believe that is yeah, that's about all the update stuff. Okay. 2.5 minutes in, that's not bad. All right, let's get into the actual topic because I'm really excited to talk about this because this is something very important to me. This topic came up when I was discussing with my friend Ben McBrayer last night. He has a YouTube channel. I'll put it in the description below. I was talking to Ben McBrayer. We have one very common interest when it comes to like what we want to do when we grow up, and that is make media, some form of media, whether it be movies, comics, animation, videos, whatever. We want to make something to entertain. Um, and what I wanted to spend this podcast talking about was just the media in general. Um, Nothing like incredibly specific, but I wanted to talk about maybe the impacts of some forms of media over others, um, and the projects that I have um, started up, quit on, plan on coming back to, and a bunch of just general things that interest me. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get into the most basic topic, which is what interests me, because I know this very well. Um, there are two very distinct classifications of media in my mind. There's mood media, and then there's commentary media. Um, And essentially, what mood media is to me is this like idea of, hey, let's just make something to capture like a feeling or something like that. It doesn't have any greater purpose. It's just supposed to be once you're exposed to it, whether you listen to it or you watch it or whatever, you feel a guttural emotion, and then that's about it. Um, And I think that classification really works with a lot of dumb action stuff. Like, I really like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and professional wrestling for that reason, just because they are story based and sometimes they can commentate on something, but usually it's just like the thrill of watching some guys beat the shit out of other guys, like underdogs fucking rising up through the ranks, or um, going to kill some fucking 100-year-old vampire after a long ass fucking road trip from Japan to Egypt. Um, but that's one classification. Another one, which is one that um, I want to take into the future. It's something that I um, it's something that I want to capture in projects that I make in the future, and that is the commentary media. And that is like your uh, Godfathers, 1984s, these big, like, epic pieces of media that are made, um, even though they can make you feel, the main purpose is to commentate on a certain issue, to say something, to like express feelings and communicate information about a situation that's going on. Um, like 1984 was all about totalitarian governments and communism and all that. Um, and I don't think that it's necessarily like everything goes into one category or the other. I think pretty much everything in life is a spectrum, but especially this, because you'll have something like Akira. I'm gonna say, um, which is it. I believe it does commentate on some things. I think, um, but I don't think that every piece of media can be just put into one category or the other. Obviously, it's a spectrum. Most things in life are gray areas. There's very rarely just a black and white classification for anything. Um, and I think there some projects that really hit the fine line between um, intellectual commentary and primal mood. Um, one of those being Akira, because Akira is a, if you don't know, Akira is a what is it, 1984. It's an 80s anime film adaptation of a manga that was going on at the same time, also known as Akira. It is a legendary anime movie. Um, Shut the fuck up, fucking Windows 10. Um, and it's really what brought like anime to the West. And I gotta say, 1988. It was from 1988, and I gotta say, Akira is one of those things that's not necessarily popular for being popular. I don't think. Um, like there's tons of music that you could say, um, like a Beethoven or just like any classical piece. Everybody knows a Mozart, but nobody can really like nobody right now can explain why anybody likes Mozart aside from the fact that everybody knows Mozart, you know? Not too many people are into classical music. Everybody just knows him because he was incredibly famous beforehand. Um, but Akira is one of those long-lasting movies that um, if you don't care or if you easily miss, um, I guess, political commentary um, in films and shows, then it'll still hook you in with its like amazing soundtrack, fantastic visuals, that all combine to make this very specific aesthetic that just fucking punches you right in the fucking gut and just buh, the buh. Um, uh, and that's the type of thing that I would like to make. If I were to make like some big theatrical, I would probably make like a manga or a comic or something. Um, I don't know about animation. I've been dabbling in that a little bit, but I'll get to that later. Um, that's the type of thing that I would like to make. Something that um, any kind of audience can like, but only a very specific few can appreciate. You know, I want to make something that's like smart and like commentates on something that affects me personally and maybe millions of others. Um, but also is just a well-rounded piece of art that anybody can just look at and be like, huh, that's pretty cool. Um, but I say that, but I have a very specific taste in media myself. I'm very much an edgy like teenage youth, um, because I was into that fucking creepypasta shit long before anyone thought it was cool. I was like back in like fucking 2009, 2010 when fucking our elementary school, not our elementary school, our middle school. Was it middle school? No, I'm getting all my years wrong. But I was the point being, I was in middle school. We had iPads. And I would always go onto the creepypasta wiki, and I would always search up shit and read that because I was just a silly young child who didn't realize when stuff wasn't creepy and just poorly written. Um, but ever since then, I feel like I don't want to say that my taste has like refined. I would say it's evolved just to avoid sounding like an arrogant prick. Because um, now I'm more into the, I guess, nuanced video projects such as like ARGs, alternate reality games, and stuff like that. Like Marble Hornets is an ARG. That's like the original ARG about that was I think that was the first that was like the biggest exposure of the Slender Man character at the time. Um, Fucking Marble Hornets was fantastic, but there are tons of others like Everyman Hybrid, um, Tribe 12, and stuff like that. But uh, over time, I've just sort of I think I've fell out of love with stuff like that, with like big long running um, series and stuff like that. I've sort of grown to appreciate the more um, grounded, short, impactful videos and projects. Um, because now, like, I could not just sit down and wait for the next episode of Tribe 12 to come out. Not only because it takes like 9 months for an episode to fucking come out, like a baby is born in the time, like many babies are born in the time that it takes a Tribe 12 episode to come out. Um, but also just because I was discussing this with Ben last night, um, long running series are good for telling a complicated and intricately woven story, but not so good for um, very like impactful heartfelt moments, I guess. There are impactful, heartfelt moments in TV, but like movies and TV are two completely different types of media. So it's kind of unfair to compare the two because movies have a set time limit, and you might think, oh, that restricts you. Why would movies ever be better? Um, but in that time limit, you sort of experience everything as one major event, and it hits you much harder than sitting down and waiting for the next 20-minute segment of this fucking like 100 hour story, you know. Um, and that and where I was going with that point before I went on that weird little tirade was that I've started diving into like the I guess you would call it like I don't think that there's a specific name for it, but the experimental um the uneasy experimental sort of portion of YouTube, where like people make like these crazy art projects like Ben Wheel. Ben Wheel is a fantastic representation for what I'm talking about. He's been making animations relatively consistently since 2003, starting with Henry Eats, which I think that is one of my fucking like all-time like favorite fucking videos on YouTube. Um, and fucking like he just like nothing is really like it's not like a connected universe. It's not like a big long animated series or anything like that. Each little thing is just like it's its own thing. And that's what like has the most impact because they fit it all like Ben has to fit it all in and make you think about it and remember it and make it like a part of your daily routine. Like with the TV series, you're just thinking about like especially when it's not over, you're just sort of thinking, hey, um, when's the next part gonna happen? What's gonna happen in it? But with there's no question with movies and one-shot projects because it's done. That's all you have to go off of. Um, there's another YouTube channel, I forget their name, but one of my favorite creepy videos on the internet um, is made by it, and they make like a bunch of other stuff too. Um, let me pull it up real quick because I just wanted to um, get the name of it. PHR 2-771 educational video by Aspicio Omnium. And that may all sound like artistic garbage, and to some people it might just be. Um, and but I think it's one of those um, it's one of those brands of videos that I think everyone just sort of needs to watch to get an accurate um, opinion on, because it's a very specific kind of video. You could call it a music video, you could call it an ARG, you could just call it a art project. You can call it so many different things, but just labeling it isn't really, um, it doesn't do it justice. So I would recommend anybody that is into relatively creepy or unnerving stuff to check that out, and preferably late at night with all the lights off and yada yada yada, all the generic YouTube gamer stuff before they're about to play Amnesia for the 5 billionth time. um, yeah, I would totally recommend that. I'm trying to think of the other one's name. He made Salad Fingers. um, which in and of itself is an interesting project. David Firth, he's another animator on YouTube, and he I can't talk about Salad Fingers like anymore without um, that anybody going like, oh, film theory or some bullshit like that. So I'm not even gonna go into detail with it, but I've always liked Salad Fingers since I watched the first episode of it back in, when was that first episode? 4 fucking years ago. Damn. 2014. Holy shit. That's nuts. Um but yeah, it's another one of those unnerving animation channels. Um like I don't know what it is about like really creepy and unnerving stuff. Like for some reason I have this thing right in my gut that just tells me, hey, you need to make people as uncomfortable as you possibly can. And that's something that I constantly do whenever I'm hanging out with friends. Is whenever I find something that makes them genuinely like um, that just makes them like that disturbs them that I can just easily do, I will do that forever. Like I know Ben, he gets very queasy whenever I make weird sexual noises. So I often like just sort of start moaning, and he's just like, "Please stop, fucking stop, no." Um, and like I made that if you follow my Instagram, or not my Instagram, my Snapchat, which is at Mr. X Factor, wink wink, um, you will have already seen my Twitch stream notification video that I made a little while back, because I post it on there every time before I stream because it's a stream notification. Um, and I made that video with the intention of creeping people out because I took an incredibly like calming and soothing song in Seabreeze, which is a basically an elevator song from Metal Gear Solid 3. Great game, great song. Play and listen to it. And what I did was I found I know that static is a very popular as a very popular noise that people like to use over creepy footage. But I went the extra mile to go find something a little bit more specific and rarer um, amongst creepy videos like this, and I found the like VHS skipping, like a torn, not like a damaged VHS tape. And I just fucking turned Seabreeze all the way down and that sound all the way up, and I put it all over footage of a very, very filtered footage of Tom Waits performing Rain Dogs in 1980 fucking something. I don't know. I think in 85, I think. But it all just sort of like boils down to this fucking the weird shit. That's all I can really describe it as, is like it's just fucking weird shit, and I really, really enjoyed making that. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I would. So maybe further on down the line, um, I might, I don't know, I might wind up making some sort of like if nothing else, like my illustration, um, my like commission career doesn't really like take off too much. I might experiment and dabble in doing that. Um, because that's something that I found out that I really enjoyed doing. I enjoy consuming weird media. I enjoy producing weird media. Overall, pretty weird guy. 9 out of 10. Would mate with fish people again. But sorry, that was a very specific reference to this picture of H.P. Lovecraft. Um, it was like with like standing with a bunch of fucking fish people. And that doesn't matter. Point being, I like making weird shit. Um, but more than making weird shit, I just like making shit. And most people know this by now, because I've made some weird stuff on my YouTube channel. I've made trailers for video games. I've made um, fucking music videos for video games. Um, I I make art streams. I make art. I draw. I have attempted to make a few comic series. I've attempted to write books. There are 2 books that I've tried to write, and I got like halfway through one, and I just sort of stopped because I didn't want to write it anymore. um, and I wanna go over most of these projects, except for maybe one. I think one I'll say the title because that one I think I might want to continue working on. Um, but I tried to make way too much shit. So right now, with uh, my current expertise with illustrating, I think that I can make a good drawing. I think I can make a relatively accurate drawing. But I don't think that it is professional enough or consistently pretty enough to be able to take professionally. And I keep on forgetting that because I started making a like a comic universe, and I started writing down like all these rules and stuff for it. It was called Deox. It was this very that was when I was reading watching and reading My Hero Academia, and I was first getting into that, and I was like, "Whoa, this is the best thing ever." Um, and there's a few ideas that I still like from it, but essentially what it is if I can remember this correctly, it has been about a year or two since I've started working on it. I remember there was a school um, for like kids who had superpowers, and they needed to go there because the government demanded that they use the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" bullshit, and like it forced them into um, it's like My Hero Academia, except they don't really want to do it. They don't really want to be a hero. They just sort of want to be normal people who live normal lives, but they have these crazy action hero powers that force them into life-threatening situations. Um, and it sort of goes through like um, just like the inner political turmoil of like the kids on campus, and like it just sort of like it builds tension the whole way through with like, hey, um, should we follow the government for making us do this shitty stuff, or um, what did I just say? I feel like I just said like the exact wrong sentence. I'm gonna restart anyway. Uh, should we rebel against the government for making us do the shitty stuff, or should we just obey because we know they're right? Essentially, is what it boils down to. Um, and it was like this big thing where it was like multiple factions and stuff like that they had to deal with, and yeah, it was pretty nuts. I had an idea beforehand, um, that was during my Stardust Crusaders phase, where I was reading. I keep on saying reading. I was watching, or got finished watching part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is like this big road trip with like a big gang of friends. And what I wanted it to be was sort of like like an X-Men type deal where it's like, oh, you fucking mutants are a bunch of assholes, you fucking asshole mutants, fuck you, and they're like basically treated like subhuman, and it's like this just group of teenagers has to fucking like go on this weird journey in order to like prove that um mutants are just like really shitty people. And that storyline led into the story of Deox. um I don't know if I ever had a name for that first one. I think I did, but I can't remember what. um but yeah. um so that was one of my projects that I wanted to make. I found it to just be way too similar to My Hero Academia in the end. Um, and the first like the other first portion that led up to the main story, I just felt like wasn't being it like I had written it all out and I didn't want to restart it even though I knew it was very poorly written. Because this was like the first thing that I tried to make and I was like, oh, fuck it. Um, So yeah, there was that. There was the Dungeons and Dragons comic book, which was the one that I was working on. I announced that I was working on it earlier when this channel um, came back with all these podcasts and stuff. Um, but again, I just sort of realized, hey, I'm not I can't fucking do this. I am not fast enough. I don't draw fast enough to make like a page a day. I'm not good enough to make fast drawings like look good. It's just like it was a bunch of uh, different things, bunch of different factors stacked on top of each other that sort of led to me tabling that. I have the drafts and stuff still on my computer. I like over the month or two that I was working on it, I barely got done like 3 pages. That's about when I realized that I should just stop because it was just getting like the pressure was just sort of getting to me and I was like, hey, I shouldn't be beating myself up over this. I shouldn't be making comics right now. I should just focus on practicing to draw before I tackle another project like this because most drawings that I make take so fucking long. Like, there's this one of Solid Snake that I meant to post on Instagram a long time ago. It'll probably be up by the time that this podcast goes out. But there's this drawing of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid that I was working on the line art for like maybe fucking like 9 hours in total. Like it took me like over 3 days to make it, and it's just this one fucking picture. It's like a bust of Solid Snake, and like I like it. I think it looks good. A lot of people that I've shown it to say that it looks really nice. Um, but it's just the fact that it took me so long to make it is really what bothers me. Um, Plus, I don't really have that simplicity down. Like, I know with like Marvel and DC Comics here in the West, like each panel is done on a separate page as to get as much detail as possible. Um, but um, I'm like with my sort of like kinda anime art style, I feel like I need to reduce things down into like simpler shapes and stuff, and I just put way too much detail into like specifically the face. Like I love drawing faces, but I can't draw anything else in my mind. Like clothes, I have such a hard time with. Hair, it takes me a little while, but sometimes I'll get it. Um, and it's not even like necessarily clothing. It's like very specific articles of clothing that really get to me. Um, but yeah, and then there's like anatomy and hands and stuff like that, which I think I'm pretty decent at, but it's like I said, it's very inconsistent. And you'll know that if you follow my Instagram page, which I post all of my art on at Mr. X Factor in the description below. Um, but that was, yeah, the Dungeons and Dragons comic was based off of my friend Thomas's D&D campaign, which I participated in, and we were doing up until we got out of school and we realized, hey, we don't have our MacBooks anymore, so we can't use our character sheets. Fuck. So, yeah, there wasn't even going to be an ending to that anyway, unless I wrote it out myself, and I just sort of said, fuck it, and yeah, like I still have the files and stuff in case I want to come back to it. It's a nice, harmless first project. I think there's no harm in making some of the panels not look so good, um, because it's just like a fun little whatever project. But really, at the end of the day, I don't know if I'll ever come back to it. I hope I will. I just need to get better at drawing. And now I need to take a drink because my throat is fucking killing me. God, that water is so warm. And I need to turn on the fan. So hot. So hot. Ah. I hope that doesn't pick up too much, does it? I think a little bit. So those were my two comic projects. I think I had a few more that I attempted, but I can't think of them right now. Um, yeah, those were my comic projects, and then I have my books that I was writing. I'll start with Colt 45, um, because that one, I think it's one of those ones that I'm still kind of iffy on. Um, Colt 45 was um, this interesting little idea I had of taking taking the concept of serial killers, which is I think a very like 80s to modern concept. Like that's usually the time period that people take like serial killers, except for like famous ones like Jack the Ripper and stuff like that. And I decided to put that in like a cowboy setting. And it's all about this former bandit, this ex-con that gets rehabilitated um, and is thrown back into wild western society, and he is overcome with urges to not necessarily like go back to his bandit lifestyle. He's pretty much over that, but he still has the bloodlust from it, and he wants to satiate that. And he winds up doing that, and it's this big fucking like it's basically about him just like trying to like cope with him being a fucking piece of shit. Um, and yeah, that's like the basis of it. I had it like halfway written out, um, and it's one of those books that I feel like as an illustrator personally, I think there's some books that just work better as a comic, um, and Colt 45 was definitely one of them. I spent so much time like writing out and describing these big, long, epic fucking action scenes from like when he was like a bandit or like in the prison or whatever. And they're these long-winded, like, whoa, all these would be such cool visuals if I was drawing it. Um, and I just kept on, like, that kept on nagging me in the back of my head, and I was like, you know what, fuck it. I like the idea, but I gotta just put it down, because writing this is painful for me, and I would much rather draw it. And so I came up with another book idea later on, I think the same school year, um, that I would work on like in between assignments during class and stuff like that. Um, it was called Interwoven in Fiscal Illinois. Um, and I don't really want to go too into detail with it, because it's a project that I plan on continuing. But I'll give like a basic pitch, for the idea right now. So essentially, America goes through an economic crisis, and they must bolster their productivity towards, just about everything, like towards making money, towards industry, towards just everything. Whilst maintaining a like capitalist, um, whilst not becoming communist, essentially. Um, and so they bubble off every every one of the big cities in the United States, and they put like a team of, um, like social engineer officials to experiment with each city, in order to try to get them to, just work better overall. So you'll have, Chicago, which the book takes place in. Uh, Chicago is, the business city. Then you'll have LA, which is the art city, and you'll have, um, like San Antonio, that's like the cattle city, and like all these, like they have one very very specific, uh, thing to produce, and they work less as cities and more as individual districts to bolster, the U.S. economy. And the book follows, these two characters, one from L.A. and one from Chicago. Um, the man from Chicago is like this middle-aged man who just sort of doesn't really care anymore, and he just does life. He goes to work, he dresses up, goes to work, and deals with the strict, laws imposed on him, uh, by their, business-oriented government that they have in Chicago. Um, and one day he bumps into, a lady from LA who's like, because she's from the art city of LA, um, they have a very like laissez-faire kind of just let them be kind of government. So, she's a very like rebellious, spunky little girl. I shouldn't say that. She's like, I had it in mind. She's like in her late 20s. I guess she'd be little compared to him, but, they bump into each other. They end up falling in love, and the only way that they can stay together is if they get married and have a baby. And so, because, under like business law, um, some very specific things that I haven't really worked out yet, but under, the very strict business law of Chicago, Illinois, they have to get married and have a baby to have any more residents in the city. Um, so they do that, and then so they're like 3 months into their relationship, and they've, um, conceived a child and got married and all that. And so the rest of the book just sort of, it goes over how their relationship sort of plays out as, you've got the almost hopeless middle-aged man grasping onto any sort of happiness that he can possibly get, and the rebellious, young lady who, really wants to like stick it to the man because they're incredibly unfair, um, and just sort of like how they're able to, um, cooperate and raise a baby, and, in the environment that they're in, and just sort of see how everything, turns out. That's my very improvised and shitty pitch for my book. Um, I really love the title. I think it sounds very professional. Um, Not to toot my own horn, and also bless me. Uh, but yeah, that's Interwoven in Fiscal Illinois. Um, that's another book idea that I had, and I think it's just like writing is not necessarily for me. I don't think. Um, because I really liked the idea. I really liked where everything was going. I looked up specific addresses to make to make it feel more like, hey, this is happening in Chicago. Um, and Yeah, I was really enjoying how it was turning out. It's just it hurt to write it, I guess. But it was one of those situations where it wouldn't really work much better as a comic, but it works extremely well as a book because there's a lot of dialogue and thought and a bunch of internal workings that go into it. Um, yeah, that's the one that I wanted to continue working on. So we will see. Um, I really liked how it was turning out. Um, so I guess I've said we'll see like 5 million times, but here it goes again. We'll see. Um, yeah. Um, I guess that's all I really wanted to talk about previous projects that I've made. Um, Future projects. I think I've made this pretty obvious. I would love to make a comic series, um, because I'm an illustrator. Obviously, I I draw things all the time. The wall above my PC in my room is completely like it is covered in drawings that I've made over the past 2 or 3 years. Um, and I just love drawing. And I also love storytelling, which is why I even got into writing in the first place because it's just all 100% storytelling. Um, so yeah, I don't know when I would start making a comic. I would love to do that sooner rather than later, but I'm just not at the point. I'm not at the skill level required of me to really make a professional looking comic, and that's really what I want out of it. I want it to look professional. I want it to be something that somebody would look at and want to buy. um, I want it to be marketable, but I also want it to be mine. I want to have full creative control, which might not make it too marketable, but as long as the art is fantastic. I don't want to say fantastic, but better than what I have right now. I think I'm a pretty decent artist as is. Many people say that many people that I have met and talked to always play me up as this really fantastic artist, and um, I'm always flattered, but I think there's just a certain energy about my stuff that's really lacking when it comes in terms of professionalism. So I need to work on that. Um, Earlier on in the video, or the podcast, I should say, um, I said that I was working on animation. I made my first little ball bouncing and then exploding animation, um, and I thought it turned out really well. It was very smooth. It was only 12 frames per second. I think I want to work at 24 frames. I would love to make like a cell animated dealio with like a team of people. That I think that would be um, extremely fun. But uh, again, it's not like I don't. If I'm gonna work on an animation, I'm not gonna work on it by myself. I need like a team of people for it to happen. Um, because fucking animating a whole project by oneself is fucking awful. And it takes forever. Um, that's why there are no animators on YouTube anymore. You need like a team of people to make a like basic 15-minute animation, or like a basic like 5-minute animation every month. Um, and like there's like specifically the guys behind Happy Souls. I believe it took them like almost a year to make that video. That's like a 15-minute, very very basic Dark Souls animation. It's also a very good video. I like it. Uh, Everybody should go check it out. Um, but that's an avenue that I would love to go down one of these days. I would love to get into music as well. Music has been one of those things that has been really important in my life as of late. I've been listening to a lot of music. I've been exposing myself to a lot of music, and it's just like it's one of those things that it's just like a constant for me now. It used to be that I would work in quiet, you know, like I would maybe listen to like a gameplay, or like a playthrough of a game or something while I draw, but like now, um, like I have to stop myself from listening to music 24/7, um, because I'm constantly, when I'm drawing, when I'm playing games, just all the time. It's like my weird experimental music, the fucking EDM, rap, folk, country, just fucking, I listen to everything, um, and I enjoy it all, and like it's gotten to the point where it's such like a consistent like white noise in the background that like, um, it almost feels unnatural to be sitting in a room without any like, just background noise. There's no white noise in my ears. There's no rhythm, that I can like, just sort of work to. Um, and I feel like I've listened to so much music lately that I don't feel like this is something that's happened. I've listened to so much music lately that whenever I work at a Hy-Vee and I'm sent out to cart like late at night or on a very like, not busy day, um, I'll just find myself, I'll just start snapping to like a tune that I'm playing perfectly in my head. Um, it's like a constant thing. I always have music on, even when I don't have music on. It's crazy. But yeah, um, I'd love to go down there, but that's very radically different from everything that I've done. You know, all of my stuff has been mainly visually based media. Um, but I just, I want to try my hand in every kind of artistic format possible, because I think all of it is worth, all of it is worth trying. You know, you can't just limit yourself to, hey, I'm good at drawing. Let's just draw forever. You know, you can't just be like, oh, I'm good at singing. That's the only thing I'll do. You end up missing out on a lot of shit by just saying, hey, I'm only going to do the thing that I'm confident that I'm good at. You know, um, you gotta experiment. You gotta go out of your comfort zone and experience like other like forms of like media and sports and anything. Like if you're currently going to high school, like if you were a junior last year and you were playing baseball, play fucking football next year, wrestle next year, swim, do something different. You could love baseball and want to be an MLB star when you grow up, but how do you know that you don't want to become the next Michael Phelps if you don't fucking take a dip in a swimming pool? Um, at least that's how I see it. You know, some people may be so extremely confident in what they want to do in their life that they specifically, that they will be satisfied with just doing that forever, and that's fine. That's cool. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just sort of giving my educated opinion. Um, but yeah, this has been a solid hour long podcast right here. Um, I think we discussed plenty of really fun topics for me. I love talking about shit like this, even if it does destroy my throat by the end of these sessions. Um, but uh, let me just go ahead and plug all of my silly bullshit here before I move on to the outro. So I've got my Instagram that I plugged earlier on, at Mr. X Factor. It'll be in the description below. I post all of my art stuff on there, so if you're interested in any kinds of miscellaneous drawings or sketches that I don't stream or post on YouTube videos like this, go ahead and check that out. Um, I have my Snapchat, which is also at Mr. X Factor. The only things I really post on my story is just stream notifications. So that's extremely useful to follow. Got my Twitch, twitch.tv/Mr. X Factor. I have an art stream wherein I draw stuff. Sometimes it turns into a game stream, and it's a very, either way, it's just a very chill environment. I like to interact with people in chat a lot. Um, I have random outbursts of insane energy depending on what we're doing. For example, I was just having a conversation with somebody in chat while I was drawing, and I was listening to "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" by Pink Floyd, and all of a sudden we get to the chorus, and I just fucking like drop everything and just scream the whole chorus. It's clipped on Twitch if you're intrigued, but so there's that. I'm trying to think. So obviously we got the YouTube here. If you like this podcast and you want to see more like this in the future, subscribe. This is going to be a now bi-weekly podcast. I've made my mind up. It's going to be bi-weekly. It's going to be fucking bi-weekly. um, and I've got my Patreon as well. I would love to make podcasts like this. I would love to um, draw, make commissions, and do live streams, and just overall like anything that I can to help bring a smile to somebody's face. I would love to do that as an occupation in the future. Um, and it would be greatly appreciated if you could donate even just $1. Of course, you don't have to. That's only if you are in a position to be able to. I know not everybody is, and I don't want to be draining people of their money when they need it most. But I believe that's all the stuff. I won't be able to do commissions for a little while. I know I just mentioned that. Unless you want to just like, I don't know exactly. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out how to do it as a minor. I've only got 1 year as a minor though, because my birthday is the 16th, which is the day after this gets uploaded. So happy birthday to me. But I'm still trying to figure out how to do this like commission stuff as a minor, because I try to open up a PayPal account. And you can only do that when you've turned 18. So, and obviously they have like all your credit card information, stuff like that. So they'll be able to check to see if you're lying, and I'm not even going to risk that. But if anybody if anybody has an alternative to PayPal that I could use for making commissions, you can comment that down below. That would be greatly appreciated, because I'd love to start making art for money more consistently. Let's see. I believe that's about it. Um, I'll put Ben's link in the description below. I talked about him a lot. We talked about a lot of this stuff last night when I spent the night over at his house. So that is about it. All right. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you want to see more, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you know. Well, you don't have to. I'd say it's pretty consistent. It's gonna be pretty consistent at this point now. Because I had no idea like what the scheduling was gonna be for any of this. But now I know that I'm comfortable with a bi-weekly schedule, and that's what I'm settling on. I love you all. I appreciate all of you. You're all fantastic and beautiful and wonderful in your own ways. And I will see you guys in the next podcast, the next live stream. Be sure to follow my Snapchat for notifications for when I go live. And follow my Twitch stream, of course. And that's it. Love you. Mwah. God, could I get any gayer? I don't think so.